What you're looking at here is The Last of Us Part 1 running on the PC, a game which was released earlier this year, so it's fairly modern despite being a port. It's running at 1440p, and you can see the frame rate is basically locked at 60 FPS. I'm not going to tell you what hardware it's running on, nor what settings I'm using here. I just want you to take a step back for a moment, and just take in what you're seeing. I want you to consider if I had given you this system as is, without you knowing the specs or settings, and told you, hey, I want you to play through the game like this, I guarantee you'll have a more than satisfactory experience. Now, I'm just speaking from a technical / performance standpoint. If you don't actually like the game itself, then that's a different story. Let's look at another game. This is Hogwarts Legacy, another modern title released earlier this year, running at 1440p, and you can see here it's locked to 60 FPS, a bit of hitching here and there, but not much we can really do about that. However, you can see here we're in Hogsmeade, that's known to be a fairly demanding area of the game, and it's running just fine, and the game looks pretty good in my opinion. I'll ask you again, if I gave you this system to play through the game like this, I think you'd have a pretty good experience. Me personally, I'd be satisfied. It's running at 1440p, looks good, and performance is overall smooth at 60 FPS, which is a totally acceptable frame rate for this kind of game. Now, what if I told you that these two games were actually running on what could be considered an entry-level GPU today? Turns out you don't need to have the latest and greatest to get an enjoyable experience, even in modern gaming, as long as you keep those expectations in check. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video.
I asked our audience, what would you ask Todd? Big question from many. Why did you not optimize this game for PC?
We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We did. It's running great. It is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome.
Mike knows much, tells some. Mike knows many things others do not.
Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. When it comes to 2023, this year has been dubbed by many within the PC gaming community as the year of the unoptimized titles. There have been plenty of big games which have come out this year, and many of them had a lot of negativity surrounding the releases, especially when it came to performance on the PC. Well, these days it seems like people find just about any reason to complain when it comes to big AAA releases, not just from a technological standpoint. Now, the reason why I showed you guys Hogwarts Legacy and The Last of Us Part 1 at the beginning was because these were two games which had a lot of discussion surrounding performance when they were released. There were a lot of people trying to run these games on their systems and found they just couldn't get solid performance. Their frame rate was all over the place, they were experiencing stuttering, and in some cases, even crashes. A lot of people were quick to call them unoptimized or even unfinished. These games did have a number of updates which came out afterwards, which stated they addressed some of the poor performance issues and brought some optimization with them. However, if there was one thing I had noticed when I was reading some of the comments online, it was that people wouldn't really be sharing what they had tried to do in order to mitigate the poor performance if they even attempted to do anything at all. I have seen people state that they would be using a mid-range CPU and a GPU combo and rant about how the game would be unplayable on their system. Someone with a CPU like a Ryzen 7 5700X and an RTX 3060 Ti couldn't achieve a stable 60 FPS in some of these modern games. A combo like that, while not super high-end anymore, it's also not what I'd consider to be bottom of the barrel either. It should still be pretty capable as long as you have some time and patience to go into a settings menu and optimize the game yourself, which for some reason a lot of people these days just don't want to do. So when I'm reading these comments from people, they seem to have this expectation that their system should be capable of running everything at ultra with a stable 60 FPS and then get mad when it doesn't do that, then proceed to call the game unoptimized. Ah yes, ultra settings, and therein lies the problem. Ultra settings, for the vast majority of users, in my opinion, are stupid, and I'm going to explain why in a moment, but before that, I wanted to explain that the two gameplay footages I had shown you were recorded running on my RTX 2080, which these days can be considered an entry to mainstream level GPU. I know that sounds a bit unbelievable to hear, but it's the truth. According to TechPowerUp's GPU database, a 2080 will now offer you performance that's comparable to an RTX 4060 or an RX 7600. Currently, on Newegg, you can actually pick up an RX 7600 for just $250, and hey, it comes with Starfield, so you can consider that another $70 off. In this current GPU era, $250 is considered entry level. Now, my RTX 2080 is overclocked, so it's more in line with a 2080 Super or RTX 3060 Ti, because here on my channel, I like to show the capabilities of my components overclocked and tuned, as that's what I advocate for people to get the most out of their hardware by tuning it. It's free performance at the end of the day. Let's circle back to Hogwarts Legacy again. Here I have two gameplay footages side by side, and one of them is using the ultra quality preset, while the other is using a mixture of settings, and I want you to guess which side is which. Did you guess correctly? If you didn't, then I don't blame you, because the differences are relatively subtle. On the Ultra side, sure, the lighting looks a little bit better, shadows are more profound, there's more grass and detailed foliage. However, the other side doesn't look that bad at all. Do you know what you would notice? The lower performance, which would lead to an inferior experience. Sure, your visuals might be nicer, but if it comes at a cost of a lower frame rate, then forget it. Hogsmeade is the area where I do my benchmark run for this title, and you can see how there's a pretty significant difference in regards to the frame rate. The benchmark run using the optimized settings was 44% faster when it came to the average FPS, and also the 1% lows. With the 1% lows above 60 FPS, you can also cap the frame rate at 60 FPS and ensure that, for the most part, your frame rate will stay locked at target, and therefore you can have a very smooth and consistent experience without the variance in performance. I want to emphasize again, and I understand this can be subjective, but me personally, I don't see a dramatic difference in overall visual fidelity, so if I can sacrifice a bit of visual eye candy for 44% better average FPS, then I'm all for it. Here's what's also really interesting. With those optimized settings where there's a mixture of medium, low, and high, that also allows us to use ray traced shadows, lighting, and reflection on high. Albeit, I did have to use DLSS, but it was set at its quality preset, which seems to provide pretty good scaling and in some instances can look even better than native. But I would argue this actually overall looks better than when we were using everything on Ultra, and it's running better too. Moving on to The Last of Us Part 1, here is some side-by-side footage where one side is using Ultra or max quality settings, while the other is using a mixture of low, medium, and high settings, just like we had done before. If you had tried to guess which side was which and still ended up not being sure of your answer, again, I don't blame you, as the differences, in my opinion, when it comes to the overall visual fidelity isn't anything dramatic. But just like we saw in Hogwarts Legacy, what you will notice when trying to run Ultra settings is really low and unplayable performance. I mean, you could lock it to 30 FPS if you wanted to for that cinematic experience or console-like experience, but I'd much rather prefer a smooth and consistent locked 60 FPS. This was achieved by just going into the settings menu and spending around 10 minutes to tweak the settings. What I really like about this game, and I wish it became the standard for every new release coming out, is that there is a preview window on the side which shows you how different levels of quality affect the image. I think this is a fantastic tool and really gives the player a lot of control on exactly how they want their image to look like and what they'll be okay with, preventing that whole guess and check process. Along with that, I did also leverage DLSS upscaling with the quality preset.
Betrayal.
I know. In my last video, I was just talking about how I hated the fact that we're having to use upscaling more frequently these days to assist in boosting frame rates, even after tweaking settings, but clearly that feedback I had gotten not just from the video, but also looking at the general opinion of the PC gaming community, the vast majority seem to be fine with using DLSS or FSR upscaling. We recently did a test of Starfield, and I had to use FSR in order to meet my performance target, and if you go onto a place like Nexus Mods, the most downloaded mod for this game right now is DLSS or the ZSS mod. A little over 500,000 people downloaded it. Along with that, when the AMD partnership was announced, the amount of outcry was quite opening to see, because people knew that this meant DLSS wouldn't be included and were upset about it. So at this point, I'm not even going to say anything, as the vast majority seem to be fine with it as well. And me personally, I have used DLSS on many occasions. I personally just tend to stick with the quality preset as my limit, and I think it provides a pretty good image, one that's comparable to the native experience. Coming back to The Last of Us, after tweaking the settings and enabling DLSS at quality, it runs great. After playing for a while, you basically forget about the whole ordeal anyways, and you can just focus on actually playing the game and having fun, which is the whole point of a video game at the end of the day. The main takeaway here is that PC gamers really need to spend a bit of time in the settings menu and learn to optimize the games for themselves, just rolling with the Ultra or Max preset, and then complaining how the game runs poorly is not going to do anything for you. When doing our benchmark run with the optimized settings versus Ultra, we were able to see an increase of around 113% to our average FPS, and our 1% lows increased by over 3 times, resulting in significantly better gameplay. I never got around to testing this game when it came out earlier this year, but I'm wondering if performance was really that bad back then as well with tweaked settings, because from what I'm seeing here, had people just gone into the settings menu and lowered some options, they would have had less complaints. Again, I don't know if this game would have run the same way with these settings on launch. If it did, then that leads me to believe people just booted up the game, didn't even bother looking at the settings, and were just hopping into gameplay right away. It's basically like the people who set up a new gaming PC, don't go into their BIOS to at least enable XMP, and then complain they feel like their system is underperforming. Next up, I wanted to take a look at a game called Forspoken. This was another title released this year which was considered broken on launch, and this game is quite hilarious. Now, I'm just going to be focusing on the tech side here, but from what I saw, this game was reviewed very poorly, so do with that what you will. But the reason why I found this game to be pretty funny is because had you launched the game with the Ultra preset, which is what it defaulted to on my system, it'll run, but performance is just absolutely abysmal. And not only that, but because it's running into a hard VRAM limit, it can't even load up textures. So not only does it run like shit, but it also looks like shit. However, once again, just going into our settings menu, dropping some settings, we get a massive performance boost. It's totally playable now, and the game looks actually better because the appropriate level of textures are loading in as opposed to a blurry smear of pixels. We can also add this game to our list of titles which was quote-unquote unoptimized, but got working very well because we just took a bit of time to adjust options in the graphics settings menu. I'm not sure what it is if people are afraid to go into the settings menu, but it just seems like they don't want to tweak settings and are quick to rant on the internet about how this game needs more optimization, or they feel the need to upgrade because they can't get a stable 60 FPS using Ultra settings. So many people fall into this trap where they need to use Ultra settings and anything lower is unplayable, and I just don't get it. Even on my system, which uses an RTX 4090, I'm still turning settings down so I can ensure that the FPS target I want to lock my frame rate to doesn't have any issues, and I mean, I just don't see the point of using Ultra settings on stuff I'm not going to notice. I don't need my clouds to look ultra realistic, I'm just going to turn that shit down. Now, on the other hand, yes, there are games out there that I think are fair to call unoptimized trash. Starfield being one of those games which came out recently, and even with medium settings, I wasn't able to get this game to run above 60 FPS on my overclocked 2080 at 1440p unless I was using FSR, but the performance wasn't justified because it looks like a game from 2015 if I'm to be honest. Still, with some tweaks, we were able to bring its performance to an acceptable level. Again, you just have to be willing to play around with it a bit. Alrighty guys, so that's gonna do it for this one. I hope you all at least learned something from this. I'm fairly sure most of my core audience that watches the channel was well aware of this, but I just wanted to put this video out there for the folks who may not be in the know or relatively new to the space. Playing on the PC had a number of appeals or pros that you just can't get with a console, and the ability to have a settings menu to tweak the game to run the way you want was one of the biggest selling features for me. If a new game comes out and I find it's running like crap or not to my expectations, I don't panic, but I'll go into the settings menu and try to figure out how to make it work right for my setup. I showed you guys 3 modern titles this year running on an entry-level GPU just fine. It's not about chasing after ultra settings, but taking a few moments to adjust settings, leverage upscaling technologies if you need to, like DLSS or FSR, and prioritize performance over pixel perfection. We unlock a world of smooth and immersive gameplay after doing that. I think gamers just need to take a step back and redefine their expectations. If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.